Hello and welcome to Media MD, your fortnightly Doof Network dose of media that you have somehow missed. I'm Reuben Morehouse.
And I'm Elliot Diebold.
And we are back this fortnight to talk about Battlestar Galactica, which is a very, imposing sounding name for something that actually was not that imposing. We'll get into it, I guess, but the name Battlestar Galactica is so high profile, and I guess the ship was that, but then it's actually just a museum at the start of it. So I found that kind of funny. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the premise of the start of this series is that it's being decommissioned because it's an old piece of trash.
It's very shit. Yeah.
How far did you get through it?
I watched the miniseries. I didn't get into any of the series.
Yeah. Okay. I kind of expected that, but yeah. Okay.
Let's talk about the plot of this thing, shall we? So basically, here's the plot. 40 years ago, big bad robots attacked humans, and there was a war. And one of the pivotal ships in this war was called the Battlestar Galactica. It's a Battlestar, which is, just as a side note, but what both the humans and the robots call their big ships, which I found funny. I mean, I don't know, maybe it's normal because obviously the humans presumably made the Cylons at some point, but the fact they just had the same name for their big bad ships was funny to me.
Anyway. I think the Cylon ones are called base stars. Maybe I'm wrong.
Okay, maybe they are called that, and I just completely thought that they were saying Battlestar.
Yeah, I mean it is a very similar name. At least the Cylon ones are kind of star shaped.
The Cylon ones do look like stars. The Battlestar Galactica is just a big, long ship. Anyway, yeah. So 40 years ago, robot versus human war.
Specifically, it was a robot uprising. They were like a worker class of AI robots.
Yep, so fair enough by the Cylons, TBH. Mm-hmm. If you have enough sentience that you can uprise, then you have enough sentience that you should uprise, in my opinion.
Yeah, depending on how you're being treated, which it sounds like they were.
Assuming that you're being treated poorly, yes. Yeah. So they just then the war, as I understand it, they didn't win the war, right? The Cylons just kind of ditched.
They talk about there being an armistice, but at least in the miniseries, it's intentionally vague how that came about or what it meant.
Yeah. It seems like the Cylons just kind of ditched, which fine. Honestly, good idea by the Cylons. Why get involved in a war when you can just be like, you know what, fuck this, we're going to go somewhere else.
It's a pretty big galaxy. We're going to fuck off.
Exactly. Now, jump ahead 40 years. There's theoretically this armistice, but no one's seen or heard from the Cylons in 40 years, and humans have kind of started to forget about them. And because of that, this Battlestar Galactica, one of these pivotal ships that was so important because it was not technologically enabled in any way, it has become a museum in the 40 years, and it's actually about to be decommissioned. They're finally shutting it down. When?
Yeah, it's in the final stages of becoming a museum. They're about to do the opening of it as a museum.
Oh, right.
Rather than a ship.
Yeah, makes sense. Yes. So they're about to, turn it into a museum. They give a big speech about, it's, etc. It's a museum now, etc. When suddenly the Cylons come back and they attack. And turns out they've also been here a little bit because Cylons can also now have robots that look like humans that are they're Terminators, basically. They pass for humans. We don't know if dogs can detect them. I'm assuming that's a plot point that comes up during the TV show.
Hugely important, yeah.
But yes, they can pass for human and do, as we'll find out later. So yeah, the Cylons just come back all of a sudden. They start attacking. They basically immediately wipe out, 99% of humanity, if not more.
It's a pretty good sneak attack.
Oh yeah, they really do it all out. The only people that survive are the Battlestar Galactica because they're the only people who still have kind of a-technological ships, which means that they are kind of immune to Cylon trickery. So this miniseries is basically the Battlestar Galactica surviving for a bit, trying to gather as many refugees as it can, kind of pussyfooting around whether it should jump back into the war, and then eventually deciding, nah, fuck it, we're just going to jump off into space and escape. And then that's it, and they do.
Yeah, and so then, as you would imagine, the lead off to the series is what the hell are they going to do now?
Yeah, I actually had that question in my head of okay, that was pretty good. What is the show now? Because if they've just jumped into space I mean, I'm assuming presumably Cylons will have to play a part in the show at some point. They haven't just ditched them forever. But it was interesting to me that the resolution of this was like, yep, we're just going to run away and fuck right off. And then like, okay, cool.
Well, I think, doesn't Adama give a speech about he knows the secret location of the 13th long lost colony?
Earth, yes, but that is immediately proven to be bullshit.
Yes.
By the president. And okay, so I guess that's like what happens in this show, but really the setup to the war that happened 40 years ago is in the first 5-minute text scroll, and then the rest of it is just kind of telling stories of the people that are involved in these first few days of the war. In terms of overarching plot, there actually isn't that much, which is fine. I actually thought, and I really enjoyed the fact that we're just kind of seeing these human stories of these people at the start of, and well, at the start and end of, I guess, the reemergence of this war. And I found that really entertaining. I found that really compelling. It is a very compelling drama.
Yeah, like I would consider this just a very, very long pilot for the show. Like it doesn't, at least whenever I've watched it, it doesn't really feel like something that I would watch this 3 hours and then be like, well, cool. That is all I needed from that. It feels like I think I've read somewhere that they weren't sure if they were going to get the show, so it's meant to stand on its own. And I can't believe that, because I don't necessarily think it does. It kind of ends on a cliffhanger.
I think it would stand on its own if it ended like 15 or 20 minutes earlier, right? Like, it ends with like, yes, we're going to go off and we'll survive. And then there's like another handful of scenes that are kind of like setting up the rest of the stuff. But yeah, so to sort of go back to what you said, yeah, it's like, I think everything that this show does, I would describe as sort of the tip of the iceberg of what the show is, and the core of that, and the reason this show was so successful is the characters and what it's doing and the stories it's telling with them. I think that's absolutely the strength. Like, Adama is fascinating, Laura Broslin's fascinating. Do you mean old or young Adama?
Old.
Or both. Yeah.
I mean,
you don't like young Adama? Okay,
he's fine.
He is. He's fine, isn't he? He's good. I actually quite liked all of the characters, and even young Adama, who's probably the most milquetoast and boring character. He works quite well in the setting through his relationship to old Adama and to the super hotshot pilot. I don't remember many of their names, I'll be honest.
Kara.
Kara, that's it. Yeah, hotshot. Isn't her call sign Starbucks?
Yes,
is that
Starbuck. Yeah,
is that intentionally like Starbucks?
I don't know. I have no idea. I actually got, this is like a weird thing for me, because when I was like 10 years old, I went to like a creative writing camp, and they told us to use things in our environment to name characters. So I had a wizard in my story called Starbuck because we drove past the Starbucks.
Nice.
Well, the thing is, I lived in the country. I didn't know Starbucks was like a thing. So the guy running the camp was making fun of me for like the whole week for calling the wizard Starbuck, because he couldn't take it seriously. So this is just a pet peeve of mine.
But that is harsh.
Yeah, but now I'll stand by Starbuck being a normal call sign in this. It can happen to anybody.
It's normal to call things Starbuck, okay? It's a normal thing. So yeah, Starbuck, that's fun. Speaking of fun little word things, I finally understand like the frack as a nerd thing. Like
yep.
The word frack, because I never really, like, I knew it was from some Star Trek or whatever shit, right? But like, I never really got it. I mean, I still don't get why people would unironically use it, but
I think it was funny because this show took it so seriously, and it's such a shit, like, it's such a blatant...
really is. It's really, really on the nose, like very silly, which I quite liked.
Yeah, like, I think that's the thing. This show just acts, it's like, we're not saying fuck, we're saying frack, so we can go to town on it, which is just kind of like showing how stupid the whole thing kind of is.
Yeah, it's true. I do like that it's meant to, like, it's a serious drama, right? And very compellingly so. But the fact that they use frack because they want to have swear words in their serious drama but couldn't get away with it is just so silly.
Yeah. I mean, you get, what's the word? You get used to it. Like, you become immune to noticing how weird it is if you keep watching the show.
Yes, for sure. Let me tell a story about how I started watching this because I think it's interesting and brings up an interesting point, which is so I started watching the miniseries, and I guess I'll just get to the punchline of this, which is that for some reason the way I was watching it, the place I was watching it through, had labeled the first episode as the second episode and the second episode as the first episode. So I jump into what I thought was the first episode, which is the second episode. And it starts with a ship has just been destroyed, and everyone's like really, really dour about it. And the first lines are older Dharma being like, "Oh my god, what's going on?" And then he's like emotional, and he goes, "Resume jump prep," and everyone's like, "Yeah." And then it starts, and I was like, "Wow, this is like it's thrown me right in the action. I love it." And it was very, I found it very compelling and very much like, wow, we've started like right in the thick of it. I'm so keen. Like, actually, let me read my notes. Okay, this is the note I have here. What a powerful opening. Sorry, I've written swear words in here, but I'm going to replace them in the spirit of the show. What a fracking powerful opening this is. Wow. Resume jump prep. Who knows what the frack this means? It's incredibly gripping right from the get-go. We can just tell that something horrible has happened, but nobody mentions what it is, so we're just forced to piece together this horrifying act of warfare that has most likely just taken place, and many people are dead. And so I was watching it, and it took me about 20 minutes to realize that I was meant to know more than I did. And so I double-checked with you, like, hey, is this how this is meant to start? And you were like, no. So I went back, and I was like, oh, okay, I've just watched the wrong episode. So I started on the actual first episode, and it just starts with a text scroll, like explaining the backstory. And I was like, I'll be honest, it brought me in being like a little bit upset at the show and how I thought it was so cool. But then
I went to such lengths to make sure that you started with the mini-series and not made the normal mistake people make, which is to start with the show. This is just a confusion that I was not prepared for you to make.
Yeah, you didn't adequately prepare me. You didn't say start with the first episode of the mini-series, okay? So that's on you.
It's interesting because I get that. Like, I get how you would go from what you think is this really high octane start to a much more mellow one. I think that's truer to the series, though. The first one, like, this isn't. I mean, the show has action, like, the miniseries has action, but it's not entirely action. Like, it's more. It's a lot more mellow and introspective. It's kind of I love how pretentious the show is. I'm just going to use that word. Like that.
No, that's fine. I do get that. Like, one of the main threads that I found really compelling in the miniseries was there's this character whose name is, I'm pretty sure, Elon Musk, who's like this scientific genius and was pretty much mostly responsible for accidentally helping the Cylons wipe out the human race, because he's a sociopath who is a technology evangelist and a real Elon Musk type,
His name is Gaius, for those of you who are at home and haven't watched this for a while and are a bit confused. He's talking about Gaius.
Yeah, and so his kind of arc, or it's not an arc, his just kind of plot throughout this story is him realizing that he's doomed the human race and not really caring about that, and mostly just trying to like not have anyone find that out and get into a position of somewhat power within the new society that seems to be emerging amongst the surviving humans. And he's such a piece of shit, but he's so and all the characters are so compelling in their, like, in the way that this is mostly just a character study of them, to a very interesting degree.
Yes, I love the way that the version of the Cylon girlfriend Boltar has, like, from that chip in his head. How she just kind of calls him out on all of his bullshit. Like, she does very fun. Like, she's like, "How are you still focusing on yourself? This is amazing." It's a great way to sort of analyze him in a particularly like
with the imaginary girlfriend in your head kind of thing. I really liked it, and I liked all the characters. I think I found myself really liking the president, who is the Ministry for Education, who is like 47th in line to take over for the president if all the other 46 people die, which they do, and then she becomes the president, and she does a great job. She's great. She's a natural born president. I found her very compelling. I found Starbuck very compelling. Older Dharma, even the shitty executive officer, I found quite interesting. They're all great.
Colonel Ty, He's a fascinating character. Yeah.
Yeah. Because even he is the closest thing that the show has to someone that you're kind of just meant to not like, right? But he has moments of like he's clearly battling alcoholism and all these things that even though you know that you don't like him because he is a kind of a piece of shit, he does things like make compelling, difficult, but morally, I think, correct choices and is battling his alcoholism and all these characters, even the ones that are the most, one-dimensional, have additional aspects that make them compelling to watch and to care about.
Yeah. It's hard for me. I've gone off. I'm like halfway through season 2 now, and I'm having to work really hard not to just talk about where people end up and only think on their miniseries versions. Yeah.
You've gone so far. So, now, what else should I talk about? Oh, so I want to touch on this. I feel like, I don't know what it is, but both the humans and the Cylons are bad at military strategy. So the humans less so. The Cylons make some terrible decisions. And maybe there's like technological reasons for this that they don't get into in the miniseries, but things like the fact that the Cylons have built, people that can, or like human, passing robots. But they only made 12 different types, just as like I guess they just didn't have enough like molds at the factory or something that day. So they made 12 different types, which felt like a crazy decision to me. Like I get it from the perspective of like they don't want us to have to think everyone could be a Cylon. They want it to be like there will be people who are Cylons that are kind of revealed over the course of the series. And we already know one person who is the Cylon that hasn't been kind of figured out. That's a fun little dangerous Manchurian candidate thread to have dangling. But why would the Cylons only have 12 models? That's crazy.
I feel like I'm still spoiling it by saying, oh, what an interesting question.
Right. Okay. So there is a reason for that, and it's not just arbitrary, because it does feel like, and maybe they don't just have 12 models. The reason we find this out is because someone leaves a note to older Dharma that says they only have 12 models. We don't know who that is, so maybe it's just like a Cylon fucking with him, being like, he'll let me think there are 12 models, but actually there's 300 or whatever. Yep. But doesn't feel like that's the truth. It feels like just as a weird decision that the Cylons have made.
Yeah, I would say the show's not perfect, but the majority of things where you think that, where it's kind of like, it's a bit weird that they like didn't do X, like 99% of those later on in the series, there'll be some twist where you're kind of like, oh, okay, that kind of retroactively makes X make sense.
Fair enough.
I suppose like the pilot of the actual show sort of opens with this idea that the Cylons actually have a plan. And that maybe it's not so much of a mistake that certain people survived.
Oh, interesting.
So like that's sort of where the show goes from the start. So there's a lot like there's just straight away a lot of like what is actually happening here.
Yeah, I do find this is going to sound insane to say, but I actually find the idea of the Cylons very compelling, because they seem to have this like transcended human vibe to them, right? And we don't get a lot of that. All we really get is there's this moment where, and this was also crazy. Okay, there's this bit where Gaius, the Elon Musk type, has this guy that he basically hates and wants to get rid of. So he convinces everyone that guy's a Cylon, and he's clearly lying, right? Like he's clearly in his head. Yeah. He has talked about how he's lying, and so they maroon this guy and leave him behind. And you're like, oh wow, this is like really dark. And then it turns out that guy just was a Cylon. Like, that was so funny to me. The fact that he just like fluked his way into guessing or lying about, making up the one person that he disliked was actually a Cylon.
Yeah, that's the best ending, because that's also the same scene where you find out that Boomer is a Cylon. So it's just such a crazy way to end the miniseries, because it sort of ends like, wait, that guy is a Cylon.
That guy was a Cylon.
Boomer's a Cylon.
I know, it was great. I really like the idea of trying to guess, because I'm assuming I think it's likely that there are going to be more Cylons on the Galactica than just Boomer, right? Because that would be crazy not to have that with the premise that people can be, Manchurian candidates, basically. And so I love the idea of kind of trying to figure out who the Cylons are. As I was watching the miniseries, I had my theory that it was the president's aide who just acts weird and said a few things like, "Oh, you're only human," every so often. And I was kind of like, that's the kind of thing a robot would say, like, right? So far, not confirmed, but we'll see.
Yes, you've still got 70 or so episodes that you could watch to find out, who they are. I think it goes for about 75 episodes, the whole show.
Yeah. Interesting. I guess I was like, the question of what actually is this story gonna be about is something that I actually found myself not caring about by the end, because like I don't really care about the plot of the humans surviving. I mean, I do from a character perspective, but not from an overarching perspective, right? The thing I care about is the specific characters. So I kind of, it's weird for me to think about a science fiction show and not have it be in terms of like a kind of episode of the week, like, let's go to a new planet and meet some new aliens kind of thing, which is what I think every other science fiction TV show that I've watched kind of is, except maybe The Expanse. But even The Expanse has pretty strong episodic content. I actually am totally vibing with the idea of this just being like a character drama in space.
Yeah, well, I mean that's effectively what it is, and that's sort of what most sci-fi TV or space sci-fi TV has tried to become since Battlestar. So like The Expanse kind of pulls it off, but like other shows like Stargate kind of destroyed themselves trying to replicate the formula.
I guess I had put Battlestar Galactica into the same box as like Stargate or Star Trek or whatever, where it's like, it's going to be go to a different planet, learn a lesson every week, but that's clearly not what it is. And I found that very enjoyable.
Yeah. Like I thought you'd like this, and I hope you watch the show, because like the best spoiler-free description I can sort of get is the miniseries feels like the tip of the iceberg for where it goes in terms of characters, in terms of exploring like the Cylons themselves, and in particular the human Cylons, who have like very interesting moral stuff they start to get into there. It's really fun.
Yeah. I'm certain that it's not just going to be, well, because we find out, okay, Boomer, we find out it's Boomer, right? And I think it's almost certainly not just going to be, in episode 13, Boomer suddenly turns evil and starts killing people, and then they kill her, and that's the end, right? Like, I'm sure there's more of a trying to figure out her own identity aspect that's going to come up in this, because that's just the kind of show that this seems like. And I'm excited for all this stuff. Like, I'm excited for. Here's something actually. I saw the opening credits sequence, and Boomer's friend, who's played by the guy who's the detective in Dollhouse,
Halo, yeah.
Is he not dead? He like totally dies in the first episode, and then he's just back in the opening credits sequence. So maybe
he stayed behind on Caprica,
right? So he was basically dead. You didn't see him die, I guess.
Yeah, it's implied that staying on Caprica is not a good way to stay alive.
Yeah,
but obviously he manages it to some degree.
That's good, because I like that actor whose name is like Tamo Pinkett or something. I think he's a very good actor, so I'm keen to see him come back. All right, Google it.
Yeah, I am. Tamo Pennicott.
Tamo Pennicott. What a cool guy. We touched on the idea of religion, and I kind of wish I had more to talk about there, but I feel like it's something that's going to present itself more throughout the rest of the show.
Yeah, it's probably a bit light in the miniseries.
Well, I found it interesting that the strongest advocate for religion in this miniseries was the sexy Cylon woman. I don't know her name.
I think they just call her Number 6.
Number 6, right. Who is the Cylon that Elon Musk has like had a fling with, and who seems to be one of the earliest sleeper agents there, helping to, destroy humanity. But she is very religious, seemingly. And I don't know if that's something that's just exclusive to her or to all the Cylons, but yeah, that was funny. And I found it very compelling. We have these other moments of, towards the end of the show, we have what is essentially a military funeral for people killed in the resurgence of the war. And it is led by someone that's clearly a senior religious figure. It just felt interesting. It felt interesting as a thing to explore the idea of religion in this, futuristic world, which is a theme that I think doesn't, religion in a kind of future science fiction setting is almost always like it's this big oppressive thing, and it just, it's you need to fight against it. It's a very Big Brother kind of vibe, which I didn't get from this. Maybe it comes out in that way later, but it just felt like a part of their life that I would find very interesting to explore more in this futuristic setting.
Yeah, like I will say, the miniseries and the show both kind of just are unashamedly basically like an alt universe version of like early 21st century American culture.
Mm.
Like, and I think that actually works in its favor because it's just kind of so unashamedly relatable to the people it was being made for and by.
Right. Yeah.
Like it just helps the characters be grounded.
Interesting. Yeah, I wonder. I mean, I'm not American, so maybe that's why that didn't really come across to me. But I wonder whether having the characters be grounded in that way, as opposed to just being compelling characters, which they clearly are, was necessary. Like, it doesn't feel like I like Starbucks because she shares her name with a major American coffee chain, presumably to help ground her character. No, I don't know, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. I don't know. Again, maybe I'm thinking more of the show, but particularly like just the way the military is kind of run exactly true. As a military is run. It
feels very US military, doesn't it?
Yeah. Like, they salute and everything. Like it's just they kind of don't even try to not just sort of be American, and I think that actually just kind of makes it easier because there's not so many hurdles and weird stuff right. Apart from Frack, and maybe that's why Frack stands out so much because it's one of the few things that's just sci-fi.
Yeah, it's so weird, isn't it? I don't know. I mean, it does have a certain charm for sure, but it is just very strange. I feel like I don't have that much to say about this show because you're right. While it is like 3 hours of a miniseries, which is a solid chunk of time, it's just like, I've watched it and I'm like, yes, I really enjoyed that. It did feel like a long first episode of a TV show, and now I just kind of want to dive in and watch it more.
Yeah, I really hope you do because it's so good. I've been obviously getting very into it.
Yes. I think I will because I did really enjoy it. How much did I enjoy it, you ask?
Yeah,
well, let me tell you. I think I'm going to give Battlestar Galactica an 8.5 out of 10.
Nice. Okay.
I liked it. It was good. Can't wait to watch more of it. Now, what are we doing next fortnight, Elliot?
I'm glad you asked, Reuben, because the answer is not another prescription.
What?
It is that time of year, the second half of July. It is time for our annual checkup. But this is an extra special annual checkup as well.
And why is that?
This will be what we are dubbing the final appointment. Because Reuben and I have made the decision that we are completely fixed and we've seen everything worth seeing now. Yep. So it's time to end the show.
Yeah, we've been doing this show for 4 years now. We've seen a lot of really, really good things.
We're cured.
And we're cured. Yeah, exactly. So that's it. The truth of the matter is we've done this show for a while and we've talked about a lot of really interesting things. And we're excited to do more shows, but we feel that the format of this show it kind of started as the idea for, hey, let's just get together and talk about stuff every week. And it's worked out pretty well for the past 4 years, but we've decided we probably want to mix it up and do some other cool things.
Yeah, we are sort of running out of ideas. And we're we're doing so much more than we were when we really started Media MD. We've obviously got Pale Reflections, the Game Club, some other things. So it's just, I don't think we're getting to give Media MD as much time as we wanted either.
Yes, I think the format is starting to feel a little restrictive. Yes. So we're going to wrap up the show. You can also, of course, check us out at our other podcasts. And the other show on the Doof Media Network that this show is kind of similar to anyway is called the Doofcast, which is a variety show where other Doof hosts meet every week and talk about a variety of things. And we're going to be taking a more active role in the Doofcast as well to kind of cover the kind of things that we would have been talking about on Media MD, in all honesty.
Yeah, and some other
and
stuff.
other things too, of course.
Yeah, but the Doofcast is going to kind of be changing a little bit itself to grow and encompass more of the network. And us, ending Media MD is going to be an important part of that as we sort of try to step in and participate more over there. So
take over that. Rather than starting our own Australian show, we're going to subversively take over other shows and make them more Australian.
Yes. So if you're sad about Media MD ending, check out the Doofcast. There's a lot of great backlog there, and obviously moving forward, we will be a part of it a bit more than we have been.
Yep. But there's still one episode of Media MD left, Elliot. Our what are we calling it?
Yes, the final appointment.
The final appointment. That's it.
So this will be following our annual checkup formula. We're going to basically go back through every episode we've ever done and quickly talk about, how it's aged, I suppose.
Yeah. So if you haven't listened to the show for more than a year, you won't have heard any of our previous annual checkups. We basically go through all of the things that we've talked about in the past, and if there's new episodes or we didn't finish talking about it a lot in the previous, when we last talked about it, we'll go through and talk about if we've watched more of the show, how our thoughts on it have evolved, how we feel about these things going forward. Basically just wrap up the past 4 years of things that we've talked about with a neat little bow.
Yeah, exactly. So if you didn't finish a show like Battlestar Galactica, you've probably finished it between then. So obviously
100 episodes or whatever in the next 2 weeks.
Reuben will come back with 50 more hours under his belt in the next
saying,
2
yes,
weeks.
It was the president's aide. I knew it all along. We'll be talking about all kinds of things. So in lieu of watching a movie or a TV show in the next fortnight, go back through some of our past episodes, see if there's anything in there that you want to kind of catch up on or check up on. And if you have any thoughts on things you'd like to hear us go back to, feel free to shoot us an email at mediamdpodcast@gmail.com. Now, Elliot, we also are going to have to change our Twitter handle. That's not going to make sense anymore, is it?
Are you able to? I don't know how Twitter works.
You can change Twitter handles, I think.
Okay. Well, we will need to do that in about a month, I'd say.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're on Twitter at MediaMD Podcast. So if you don't want to shoot us an email, shoot us a tweet. Yeah. Yep. Also, chuck us a review on iTunes. For when people find the show after it's done, I suppose.
Yeah. You can hear some of the other shows that we are on at the Doof Media Network, which is a patron-supported network, meaning that you listeners make all this content happen. So if you want to become one of those you listeners that I just discussed, head on to patreon.com/doofmedia and check out all the cool, awesome perks that you can get for supporting us.
Yes, one such perk is at the $1 level. You get to have your vote in what we cover in the Game Club, which is another show Reuben and I run where we play a game for a month and then we all meet up and chat about how it was. We just did one over the weekend, which was for FTL, Faster Than Light. Yep. So that was a fun thing, and that's on YouTube if you want to go check out us talking about what it was like to play FTL for a month. Yeah.
For the links to all of these things, our Twitter, the Patreon, the YouTube for Doof Media, all that stuff you can find on the Doof Media website, which is doofmedia.com. While you're there, you can also find all the previous clues for the Media MD ARG. You can help us figure out just who is Dr. MD and why is her boomer so okay. Elliot, why don't you tell the listeners this fortnight's clue?
Tennis ball.
And we'll see you next fortnight.
Next fortnight we're actually going to have to reveal the answer to the ARG.
Dr. MD, I know, God.